The knock at the door came at exactly 12:03 a.m., 3 soft, trembling taps that didn't belong to the night. Daniel froze in the dim hallway, his heart pounding as if it already knew that whatever waited on the other side would change everything. His triplet daughters stood behind him in matching pink pajamas, their tiny hands clutching one another, their sleepy eyes wide with confusion. And when Daniel opened the door, the last person he ever expected to see was standing there. His boss, the woman whose feelings he had ignored for months, staring back at him with tear-filled eyes and a truth neither of them could run from. Before we dive deeper into this emotional journey, take a moment to like, comment, share and subscribe if you believe in kindness and second chances. Stories like this remind us how fragile pride can be and how powerful forgiveness is. Daniel Harper had spent the last 4 years living in survival mode. Ever since his wife passed away during childbirth complications, leaving him alone with newborn triplets, his world had narrowed to diapers, sleepless nights, and impossible bills. There was no room for romance, no room for vulnerability, and certainly no room for feelings, especially not from his boss. He worked as a senior project manager at a growing marketing firm where long hours were expected and emotions were considered weaknesses. His boss, Olivia Reynolds, was known for her sharp mind, high standards, and composed exterior. She commanded every room she entered, and Daniel respected her deeply, but he kept her at arm's length. Olivia had been surprisingly patient with him. She gave him flexible hours when the girls were sick. She quietly covered for him during emergency daycare calls. She defended him in board meetings when his productivity slipped during especially hard weeks. Daniel noticed all of it, but he convinced himself it was professional courtesy. He refused to see the softness in her eyes whenever she asked about his daughters. He ignored the way her voice gentled when she said their names. He buried every flicker of possibility beneath layers of grief and responsibility. To him, love felt like betrayal. Loving again felt like replacing what he had lost. And he wasn't ready to face that. The tension between them grew slowly. Office rumors began swirling about Olivia's obvious affection for him. Daniel responded by becoming colder, more distant. He declined invitations to company dinners. He avoided personal conversations. One afternoon, when Olivia hesitantly mentioned that she admired his strength as a father, Daniel cut her off mid-sentence, reminding her that work should remain professional. The hurt in her eyes was immediate, but she masked it quickly, nodding and stepping back behind her polished executive demeanor. What Daniel didn't know was that Olivia had her own quiet battles. She had grown up in foster homes, never knowing stability, never knowing what family truly felt like. Watching Daniel raise 3 little girls alone stirred something deep within her, a longing she never allowed herself to acknowledge. But after that conversation, she decided she would never cross that boundary again. Weeks passed. Then came the night that unraveled everything. Daniel had stayed late finishing a critical presentation. The babysitter canceled last minute, so he brought the girls to the office, setting them up in the break room with blankets and snacks. Olivia found them asleep on the couch around 10 p.m., tiny heads resting against one another like fragile porcelain dolls. Something inside her cracked open. She quietly draped her coat over them and turned off the harsh overhead lights. When Daniel saw her standing there, illuminated by the soft glow of the city skyline, something shifted. For a moment, the walls he had built felt thin, but instead of gratitude, fear took over. He told her firmly that he could handle his responsibilities, that he didn't need saving. The words were harsher than he intended. Olivia's expression fell, and without another word, she walked away. 2 days later, Daniel was called into the boardroom. The investors were concerned about missed targets. They suggested restructuring leadership. Olivia defended him fiercely, arguing that his performance was still exceptional despite personal hardship. But the board wasn't convinced. They pressured her to choose between emotional bias and company growth. For the first time in her career, Olivia felt powerless. That night, after signing paperwork she never wanted to sign, she drove to Daniel's house. And now she stood at his door at midnight, not as his boss, but as a woman stripped of authority and composure. Daniel saw it instantly. The exhaustion, the quiet devastation. The triplets peeked around his legs, their curls framing solemn faces. One of them stepped forward shyly and wrapped her small arms around Olivia's waist, as if sensing something the adults could not say aloud. The other two followed. Olivia's breath hitched. She dropped to her knees, holding them gently, tears finally escaping. Daniel felt something inside him shatter, not from weakness, but from clarity. He realized he had mistaken strength for isolation. He had confused independence with emotional numbness. In trying to protect his daughters from more loss, he had pushed away the one person willing to stand beside them without hesitation. Olivia explained quietly that she had resigned rather than terminate him. She couldn't be the reason those girls lost another piece of stability. She told him she would find another path, another company. Her voice trembled, not from regret, but from the finality of it. Daniel looked at his daughters, clinging to her as if she already belonged there. And in that stillness he understood something profound. Love does not replace what was lost. It honors it by allowing life to continue. He stepped forward and did the one thing he had denied himself for years. He thanked her, not just for defending his job, but for caring, for seeing his family as something worth fighting for loving them when he was too afraid to. Over the following weeks, everything changed. Daniel declined the board's offer to stay under new leadership. Instead, he partnered with Olivia to start a smaller consulting firm built on flexibility and compassion. It wasn't easy. There were financial risks and long nights and moments of doubt. But there was also laughter at the dinner table, shared school pickups, and the quiet comfort of knowing he wasn't alone anymore. The triplets blossomed under Olivia's presence. They painted her pictures for the new office walls. They insisted she read bedtime stories. Slowly, Daniel allowed himself to grieve fully and to heal. He learned that strength wasn't about carrying every burden silently. It was about allowing others to help carry it with you. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like, share, and comment below. Your engagement helps stories like this reach more people who might need hope tonight. And before we close, tell us in the comments, do you believe love can find you even after unimaginable loss? The night that began with 3 soft knocks became the turning point Daniel never saw coming. Sometimes the doors we're afraid to open are the ones that lead us back to life.